Hello viewers, my name is Kona Sise. Viewers, as usual today, the camera can work out with you for witness the national stakeholders engagement on the National Cyber Bill 2020 where the Ministry of Information and Communication the host now the country lodge. We the go now the country lodge and conference room for go witness this program.
Mr. Minister, members of Parliament, heads of MPs present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for coming to this stakeholders engagement on cyber security bill 2020. We are delighted to re-engage key stakeholders on this bill for two reasons. Number one, the bill is very important to us as a nation, and secondly, we take our development partners very seriously because we believe synergism is an effective tool in the ICT telecom sector and the world at large. As you may be aware, His Excellency the President, Brigadier Retired Julius Maldo, has called for the scaling up of the ICT telecom sector, telecom services, to create a digitally inclusive Sierra Leone that will transform our economy to a digital economy. To achieve this goal would require the development of a suitable legal and regulatory framework that deals with the misuse and vulnerabilities this creates. So now we are at the penultimate stage of getting the bill ratified. When you are in the process of enacting a bill, it has become imperative in recent past to engage the House of Parliament in a pre-legislative meeting. In this meeting, MPs have an opportunity to delve into the bill to ensure that it is less problematic and that they understand the practical details of the said bill. A very convincing pre-legislative meeting indicates the likelihood of the bill passing swiftly through the various parliamentary stages. The primary focus, therefore, of this re-engagement meeting is to give us all an opportunity to have a second look at the final draft bill that has already been presented, own it, and to crystallize our bounding thoughts on it before we engage Parliament. So this meeting is to introspect all our activities into a galvanized and harmonized format for a formidable cybersecurity bill that will stand the test of time. In the presentation, we can look at critical areas and open the floor for discussions, contributions, and recommendations. I therefore want to appeal to all of us to stay throughout the session and also to assure you that lunch will be served at the end of the day. Thank you very much for coming. Like the PS mentioned, we do not intend to keep you here longer than necessary because we want to make sure that we all go back to our various offices to continue with the business of the day. Now we come to statements. I'd like to, first of all, call on the leader of government business, if he's present here, to make a statement. Otherwise, his representative can do so.
Good morning, or good morning, Madam Chair. Permit me to start on the existing protocol. This is a huge task. I'm not going to perform the task of the leader of government business, but the Committee on Information and Communication and the House of Parliament. In a special way, I want to thank the Minister and his team for putting together this proposal, the bill, and for us, cybercrime is important because it's a global problem. It's a problem that affects every spectrum of life as long as you are using internet or computer. So in that case, as a parliament and as a committee on oversight and communication, we want to assure this body that we give absolute support to ensure we enact this bill into law. Because this one will help save our country, it helps save our reputation internationally. However, we all know that cyber crime has its own components. We have the hacking, we have the identification theft, we have the cyberbullying that is normal in our own society, we have the cyber phishing, For example, we do have people who normally call that this is Brado, can you help me with the money? These are all things that are regular in a society on a regular basis. So in that case, Madam Chair, we want to assure you that we will give our support to ensure we spearhead these activities to ensure we have this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up to make a statement is the leader, party leader for APC. Well, I don't think the leader is here, but I think a representative is here. It's ably represented by Honorable Abdul Karim. Thank you very much, Honorable.
I consider it a blessing and a privilege to be acting in the capacity of the caucus leader of the All People's Congress in Parliament. And basically, we have demonstrated our unanimity in repealing the Public Order Act recently in Parliament. And our own people normally say a chick that is going to be a cock is spotted the first day it is hatched. So that shows that we're going to resonate again as Parliament to support this cyber law, because we know the adverse effect it has on the country. And quite apart from that, we have to take an introspective look at the law we make, because the law we make now will affect generations yet to come. That is why as Parliament we are always careful in the clauses we approve in any deal or in any agreement, because we are of the firmest opinion that it will affect generations yet untold. And this is a very critical one, you know, and it does not only constitute a separate area of law, rather it encompasses aspects of contracts, intellectual property, privacy, data protection, and intellectual property may constitute copyright, you know, rule on fair use, and the rest. But what is most important and what is our own concern as the Parliament is sovereignty. Sierra Leone is part of the regional parliament, which is ECOWAS Parliament. And what obtains in Sierra Leone should be the same with what obtains in other West African regional countries. So again, I want to implore on those who have put together this draft to see if there is any West African country that has a similar law. Reason being, we want to do some comparative analysis. We don't want this to be crime in Guinea and it is not a crime in Sierra Leone. We don't want this to be a crime in Nigeria and it is not a crime in Sierra Leone. You know, ECOWAS is a signatory to a lot of cyber-related laws. So we want to see how best we can be able to domesticate those laws, and we want to see how best there will be easy flow in the region. Because internet per se is a different area. It's on its own. And somebody may be in Nigeria, commit a crime on the internet, and that crime would be a crime in Sierra Leone, but it is not a crime in Nigeria. So how do you get hold of the person? So we have to be very careful, and we have to ensure that there is consensus and there is unanimity in the law we make, especially in the region, because Sierra Leone is part of the region. So we don't want to, be doing things solitarily. That is why we are emphatic on this. We don't want laws just to be imported from other countries, bring them to Sierra Leone, and it is not practiced in the sub-region. So we have to be very careful, and we have to do benchmarking from other countries who have accepted and enacted this law. The law is good, and to us it's a blessing. And this parliament is on record for making history, and we want to be part of the history. It was Reverend Dr. Chibodu that once said, if you are in a society, you do not positively affect the society, you are a minus to that society. It would have been better you never existed in that society. We don't want to be minus society.
As we like you mentioned, when the Public Order Act was repealed, and we are about to make yet another history for this particular bill. So I would encourage you to continue to stay on so that the issues of importance raised in your submission, can be adequately addressed once we get to the stage where we do the presentation. So thank you very much for your statement. I don't know whether we have a representative from C4C. NGC, do you have somebody here representing NGC? Okay, thank you. Well, we'll move on to the next speaker, Chair of the Legislative Committee Entitlement. Here you are. Is not here. Yes, also very busy with parliamentary conditions and so on. Okay, now we'll go on to the chairman for NATCOM. Daniel Kaitimi. Sorry, Chairman, Madam, I beg your pardon, Madam Badiana Samba.
Chairman of this very important meeting, the Honorable Minister of the Ministry of Information and Communication, allow me to stand on existing protocols. I bring you greetings from the Commission, and I am very pleased that we are adding our voice, because today is a very historic day in the history of Sierra Leone. The provision of critical information infrastructure, facilitation of international cooperation in dealing with cybercrime and other related matters is integral to the agenda of this government, the government of Sierra Leone, the National Telecommunications Commission, NATCOM, and related stakeholders in the telecoms industry. This is a very, very important meeting because it shows that the government, through the Ministry of Information and Communication, considers stakeholders as an integral part of the process of ensuring that we are able to have a cybercrime bill in Sierra Leone. As a commission mandated to not only provide license and regulate the activities of telecommunication operations in Sierra Leone, so as to promote efficiency and fair competition, we are also charged with the responsibility to protect our users and consumers of telecommunication networks and services, all in a bid to ensure progressive development of the sector and technology in Sierra Leone. We therefore consider data protection, electronic offenses, very, very key and vital to any cybercrime law. And we want to ensure that this bill, before passed, should also consider that the fact that we have compartmentalized it, we should be able to make sure that we are able to separate all of these so that we have a law that is a force to reckon with globally. Contemporary cyber threats can only be confronted by combining the regulations, remedies, and legal practices of these areas of law. The move made, therefore, by government through the Ministry of Information is welcome, and it is a wake-up call of all who are involved in national security, and to ensure that, especially cyber attackers who think they cannot be penalized for irresponsible behavior and attacks, are now held accountable. Sierra Leone can no longer tolerate child pornography. We can no longer tolerate territorial disturbance through cybercrime. This engagement is part of the citizens' engagement called by the ministry to ensure that all stakeholders are included, and you add your voice before we finally go through the final stages in Parliament. Some critical questions, though, we may need to reflect on during this engagement may border around the mandate. Who regulates? We know that Section 50 clearly talks about the Council. We also have a mandate, so how do we ensure that everybody's role is clear and we understand all of those issues before we leave here? test the limit of existing laws. So as our brother said, a writer, Eneka Tik, gave 10 rules to cyber security. So we may want to also look at that, which talks about the issue our brother was talking about when he talks about territorial law. Meaning, if we have a law in Conakry and Sierra Leone, the laws that we enforce in Sierra Leone should be able to cover the laws in Guinea. So if you commit a crime in Conakry, you'll be held accountable even when you come to Sierra Leone. So that is why the law is actually talking about international cooperation. So I want us to ensure that we actually look into all of those issues. Let us all critically engage to make valuable contributions to this process. And as Madam Chair said, let us all stay till the end. We cannot make Sierra Leone better if we are not part of the planning processes and the implementation. Let us be critical and let us ensure that we own this bill. On that note, I want to appreciate the work that the Commission, NATCOM, has been doing to ensure that we curtail cybercrime, all the staff who have been engaged in supporting the Director General and the Deputy Director General and the board. I want to extend my appreciation to you. The Ministry has been very supportive to us. The Sierra Leone Police have been supportive, and the ONS. We want to appreciate all of you, and we ensure that Section 47 is really clearly understood by all of us. Thank you very much, and I wish us all a successful deliberation.
Make our concerns known, bring out issues so that at the end of the day, the bill would stand the test of time once it's passed into law. So we appreciate you coming here and again, emphasize that we continue to stay on so that our concerns, whatever recommendations that we have, that will make this document a good document at the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve that. So let me thank you very much for your statement and move on to the next speaker, who is the minimum. Before I go on to the minister, let me recognize the presence of the Honorable Paramount Chief. Thank you very much for coming, sir. So next main statement, actually that's the keynote statement, and that brings us to the end of statements before we go on to the presentation. I'd like to invite the Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Ramanswari, to give the statement.
I'll be strictly on to stay on script. I'm going to ensure I do. Representative of leader of government business, leaders and members of political parties here present, Paramount Chief, Madam, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, of course, civil society is present here in large force. You are most certainly welcome. Madam Chairperson, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me join other speakers before me to welcome you all to this very important interactive stakeholder engagement on the draft National Cybercrime Bill 2020. Like other speakers have noted, the internet, mobile networks, and related digital technologies have become indispensable tools affecting the way we live, communicate, work, and do business, spurring tremendous economic development. Under the current leadership of His Excellency, retired Brigadier General Bill, we are witnessing an increase in the use of digital technologies in our daily activities, with about 6.9 million people, 87% of our population, enjoying mobile voice coverage, and about 20% accessing broadband internet. There are about 700,000 active social media subscribers, principally on WhatsApp, on Facebook, with an average growth rate of about 15%. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that's evidence that it affects the whole business, the whole, do everything. Even when you're in the middle of something, the phone rings or sometimes message comes to the voice, So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware that the growth and development of our ICT and telecom sector to contribute to the attainment of our national goals hinges on a suitable, predictable, legal and regulatory framework that ensures a competitive environment for the development and provision of services, creating scope for universal access and at the same time increasing consumers' choice as well as guaranteeing their freedoms and fundamental rights. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to increase access to these services through our investment in the fiber assets and by creating a conducive policy environment for investment, we equally become exposed as other countries to issues relating to cybercrime and cybersecurity. That is a great threat to national, regional, and international peace and security. The threat of cybercrime is growing in Africa, and the number of cyber attacks is witnessing alarming growth, especially from the ECOWAS region. Most frequent forms of what is considered a cybercrime in Sierra Leone are hacking of Facebook pages, like the Honorable Minister Kambo rightly alluded to, defamatory articles or remarks made online, inbox fraud, and revenge porn. I know Sir NAFCOM is particularly interested in the inbox fraud aspect of cybercrime. It has also been noted by the Sierra Leone police that there's an increase of traditional crimes committed in the age of digital technologies, or those that involve electronic evidence. These crimes include murder, burglary, larceny, and kidnapping. Therefore, the need to ensure that citizens, governments, and businesses are protected from the increasing global cyber threats and cyber attacks, including cyberbullying, cyber terrorism, and cyber espionage, cannot be underestimated. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, currently, Sierra Leone has no specific legislation on cybercrime or electronic evidence, and therefore depend largely on the 1991 Constitution or the Criminal Procedures Act of 1965 as the primary reference and legal basis for search and seizure of evidence for purposes of investigation and prosecution. So what is relied on at the moment is older than most of the MPs who have spoken here. So that's pretty serious. That means we are living antiquity, in a very modern era. However, admissibility of electronic evidence has yet to be included in the Sierra Leone legal framework. A supportive legal environment is crucial to create trust online and to ensure electronic interactions between enterprises and individuals. As a government, we are joining the global community to take active steps to support and implement commitments to the global framework that promotes security and stability in cyberspace by building a solid foundation for an interactive and enforceable national cybersecurity legal framework. Cognizant of these legal challenges, my ministry attracted technical and financial support from the Council of Europe for the development of a cybercrime legislation. With that support, we worked closely with the Attorney General's office to develop Sierra Leone's first ever cybercrime bill. This bill contains the necessary legislative provisions to govern and regulate cyber activities within the country. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we create the enabling legal and regulatory framework to create a secure cyber environment, we are also mindful of the need to develop our capacity and cyber capabilities. Through my ministry, Sierra Leone will soon benefit from an European Union ECOWAS project to establish the country's first national computer security incident response team, National SAT. The project is designed by ECOWAS to enhance cybersecurity and fight against cybercrime in the ECOWAS region. More specifically, it aims at improving the resilience of information infrastructures used within the ECOWAS region and building the baseline capabilities of member states to fight against cybercrime effectively. Furthermore, the ministry, with support from Global Partners Digital, GPD, a UK organization, is also supporting our development of our first national cybersecurity strategy. This 5-year strategy aims at providing a secure and resilient cyberspace that will ensure the protection of national interests while preserving the fundamental rights of our citizens. Its objectives and activities stem from the Cybersecurity Capacity Maturity Model Review conducted in 2016 by the Oxford University, together with the National Cybersecurity National Risk Assessment Report launched in January 2020, supported by the UK Home Office. This stakeholder consultative meeting, therefore, is to build consensus on the draft National Cybercrime Bill 2020 that we have worked with the Office of the Attorney General Law Officers Department to draft. I therefore invite you all to fearlessly debate this bill and ask the tough right questions that will enrich the debate and enhance the potency of the proposed law to address current and emerging problems facing us as a country in cyberspace. I further enjoin you all to continue to work with my ministry as we take this bill to the House of Parliament for enactment. The ministry looks forward to your valuable contributions to enhancing this conference. On a final note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share a few anecdotal examples to underline the very significance of what we are here for today. At the end of his tenure as anti-corruption czar in Nigeria, head of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Nuhu Ribadu, a very respected Nigerian, was on TED Talk. He said on that medium that Nigerians sat in Nigeria and robbed a bank in Brazil, $240 million. Yeah, that was a cyber crime. The bank collapsed and the bank governor died. So that was investigated in Nigeria. Necessary steps were taken, including returning proceeds to the bank and all of that. Most recently, those of us who follow the news, there's this other guy, Hush Puppy. You heard about it? I mean, he had looted more money than sense. You know, when he was arrested, they could not even give a proper account of how much money he had robbed through various schemes, you know, using cyber fraud. So it's very, very important. I've had many people say, no, we are not over there yet. Don't say that loud enough so nobody hears you. You know, the more vulnerable you are, the more threat you are to the world. Sierra Leone does not want to become a pariah state. We want to be a respected member of the International Community of Nations. That is why we are putting in place this enabling legislation to be able to regulate the correct conduct of life of our people on cyberspace. This should not be mistaken by naysayers as an attempt by government to claw back anything of free speech. It has not anything to do with it. It is simply to ensure the correct conduct of life we will be in cyberspace. On that note, thank you very much. Welcome and enjoy your stay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard there from the man, the team leader of the Ministry of Information. He has spoken so passionately about the need for us to, pay rapt attention to this process so that at the end of the day, we will have a law, that will not only stand the test of time, but of course regulate correct conduct on people on the cyberspace. As we know, there's a whole lot, we are all witnesses to what's happening, the abuse, of the cyberspace, because we see people doing a lot of things that, bad things using various mediums, on the internet. So we cannot sit by, like the Minister mentioned, there is no law in terms, we don't have, specific legislation on cyber crime or electronic evidence, and therefore, what we are depending on now is a very old act, to bring people to book once they fall out of the law. We are trying now to make history, as all of us in this room are trying to make history by making sure that we go through this particular document and make sure that its contents are really, the contents will really stand the test of time at the end of the day. So without wasting much time, we had all the speakers.
Madam Chair, honorable members of Parliament present here, heads of service providers, institutions, management from NATCOM, civil society, media, other colleagues in the industry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on the existing protocols and to make this presentation by the name of the Honorable Minister, who actually owns the presentation because he will be taking this to Parliament. I'm merely supporting him. The statement that I hear this morning has actually encouraged me that Sierra Leone we are on the right path. You remember during the election in the United States, there was this constant question they like to ask the candidate. If you receive that phone call, 6 a.m. in the morning, what will you do? Most people did not understand the rationale behind that question. Most of the speakers here are the very people who will sit in that room where all of us here will not be there to make that decision. So if they understand the importance of cybersecurity, then it means we are on the right track. So it means when they sit in that room, where all of us will not be there, they will make the right decision. So when I listened to their statement this morning, the honorable members from parliament, the minister, the chair of NATCOM, it means that they now understand the gravity of cybersecurity in Sierra Leone. I want to start this presentation by first of all understanding why really do we have to be serious about cybersecurity. It's all from a very government vision. The government vision as far as the ICT telecom sector is concerned is what? To create a digitally inclusive society and economy empowered by digital innovation and entrepreneurship. These are very important words. For modern day development, I think those are the words that the buzzwords. Innovation, entrepreneurship, digital technology. For countries that have embraced those three words, we have seen the progression they are making in the world. So Sierra Leone wants to be part of that global legend of countries that are taking advantage of the potential of digital technology. And when we talk about the digital economy, this is basically an economy that is driven by technology. In the past, economies were driven by labor, manpower, machinery, etc., etc. But in the 21st century, all giant economics in the world, the Singapore, the Korea, the United States, China, etc., etc., are driven by digital technology, full stop. Even where labor, human labor is required, technology is driving it. Technology determines how many laborers you need today on the farm, how many of this you will need. So digital technology is now the linchpin in modern development. And when we talk about the digital technology, we basically mean ICT plus digital media and content. That's what it means. And it affects every aspect of society. You talk about education, it affects education. You talk about tourism, it affects tourism. Industry, education, you name it. Any facet of our society now, digital technology has a role to play, very big role to play. So therefore, if we embrace it, these are some of the outcomes that we will see. We will see an improved service delivery. Imagine if we had not properly put our house in order in terms of digital technology, with the stroke of COVID, it asked everybody to stay at home. But the economy continued on because people are able to stay at home and work from home. In fact, the new norm now will be work from home. And that is only powered by digital technology. Education services we are delivered from home, healthcare services, in fact some countries, even now for common diseases, people are consulting from home and they are prescribing from them. So we also are able to connect our people. So because of digital technology, even though families were asked to stay apart, real families were asked to stay apart, but digitally we are able to stay connected. We are able, I remember a case in the US, a dying mom actually had her family on Facebook saying goodbye to her. That was so, emotional. So that's how digitally we are connected. It creates jobs. It also helps countries like ours who have lagged behind to leapfrog our economic development. And of course, transparency and accountability is one thing that digital technology will give. Please, I just want to give some of this background so we understand. Now, we are talking about a digital society. And when we talk about digital society, connectivity, internet network becomes the most critical players in production. Connectivity, interconnectivity of network, etc., etc. So when we talk about internet, the internet is actually the connection of networks. Networks of networks of networks. It's like the email you send or the WhatsApp message you send. If they show you physically the amount of connections you are connected to for you to be able to do that, it will amaze you. It's like a spider web. So, and because of that, it means now production, as far as productivity concerned, we become more reliant on what? The cyberspace. So it's no longer about the amount of fighter lands that we have, the amount of the mineral wealth that we have. It's about the cyberspace. How are you going to take advantage of your cyberspace? And what is this cyberspace? This is basically just the environment over which computer communications take place. I mean, when you say computer communications, it's a big word. And the one thing I want people to know here, the minister said it, please don't say that my country is small or we poor, what thing they will target me for. No, it's so easy now for anybody or any organization to launch a cyber attack. And trust me, the biggest challenge to peace and security of the world is no longer the ballistic missiles. It's no longer the atomic weapons that America, UK and others have. It's what? The cyberspace. The next world war, God forbid, let it happen, will happen in the cyberspace. We are seeing it. There's high tension now between China and America, Russia, America, not physically, but in the cyberspace. They are all fighting for the potential of the cyberspace. So we have to treat cybersecurity serious. And like the minister said, the most vulnerable will be used as launch pads in that battle. And when you are used as a launch pad, the retaliation will come direct to you. Not Russia that will launch the attack, God forbid, but to you. So therefore, the other thing is, I think one of the speakers said is that the attack no limitations and boundaries. In fact, this is the biggest, I think one of the speakers said, it's really very difficult to have a jurisdiction over cyber crime. I think one of the speakers said, like the minister was saying, somebody sitting in Nigeria committing a crime in Brazil. How can you have jurisdiction over that? Most jurisdictions have their, please forgive me, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. So don't say, this man is treading in dangerous ground. But when it comes to jurisdiction, people will say, well, Sierra Leone has jurisdiction over this territory. But when it comes to cyber, trust me, most often cyber crimes that occur, the perpetrators are not resident in your country. We are seeing it here in Sierra Leone. Some of the visible threats that we are receiving, the people are not resident in Sierra Leone. They are resident far away, but they are actually threatening our security, peace and security. So that's the nature of cyber crime that we are talking about. So it should not be ignored. So again, two things that we need to know: cyber security, cyber crime. So very distinct terms. Cyber security is about prevention. How do you prevent? How do you secure the critical infrastructure that we are talking about? This computer. How do I secure this computer so that my document in it is not hacked, or my email, etc., etc. Crime aspect deals with the criminalization of the conduct, investigation, prosecution, and adjudication of the cases. So that's the two different. One is about prevention, the other one is about criminalizing conduct. Again, cybercrime is a global crime. Independent from the size, geographic position, socio-economic condition of the country, irrespective of your country, it's always a global crime. I mean, we have had bigger countries threatening smaller countries because some bad people are sitting there and sending rogue interactions into their network. So, and what does that mean? Crimes are committed remotely. The evidence is volatile. I mean, the bank robbery that happens in Brazil, if you wait for 2-3 months, they might just destroy the computers, maybe do something that will just destroy that evidence. And most often, it's not resident in your jurisdiction. This is not where police will just put a crack team together, or the ACC will put a crack team together, go raid, back, they go there. No. Somewhere else, the evidence is far away in the cloud, somewhere in the world, maybe in Atlanta, etc., etc. So, and most often, national law enforcement agencies are limited to their geographical borders. There's no way CID in here will put a crack team together to go and raid even slightly beyond Balamuya. No. It will be a diplomatic issue. You cannot. So, that's something we have to bear in our mind. International assistance, therefore, is very important. If you don't collaborate, you will not be able to prosecute people. No jurisdiction online. The cyberspace is very difficult to have jurisdiction over it. So the whole issue of internet governance, this is what people are saying. Say, are you really able to govern the internet? It's difficult for you to govern the internet. So therefore, international cooperation to deal with distant countries, different cultures, different legal traditions, different criminal law frame is very key when you draft your cyber security. What are some of the threat vectors? Normally, it happens with application, operating system, hardware, networks. Those are some global threat vectors: ransomware, DDoS, phishing, malware, spam, etc., etc. But specifically to Sierra Leone, when we talk to the CID, we are able to categorize the cyber issues they are seeing into one, crimes against individuals, organizations, and against the country itself. And we went further to interrogate them, but what really are people bringing in front of you? They say most of the people are reporting about Facebook hacking, social media insults, using WhatsApp, Facebook, defamatory libel posting, fake calls. This was very common some time ago. NATCOM was really concerned about it. SIM registration, fake SIM registration. Some people, when they go to buy SIM, they give fake registration because they have ill intentions, etc., etc. So these are some of the social media impersonation, social bullying. Somebody talk about it, social media. We'll talk about some of them in the context of the threatening remarks on online, through phone calls, etc., etc. I will come now to international cooperation. Because cybersecurity is such a global issue that even the regional bodies that we belong to are now looking at it from the global perspective. So basically, there is this Africa Forum on Cybercrime and Electronic Evidence. Normally the meeting is held in Addis Ababa. So when the Honorable Minister took over, this was his first job. You have various global players in the cyber landscape. So it was during that meeting that he actually latched on the opportunity to have Sierra Leone actually do something serious about cyber security. So there are various players, like Council of Europe, European Union, Interpol, etc., Commonwealth, US, etc. All the big players are there. We are now benefiting from that conference annually. So like I talk about international cooperation, so what the African Union has done is that to align themselves with some of these countries that has best laws in place so that it becomes easier for African countries to model their laws around them so that it becomes very easy, especially for international cooperation. Because for international cooperation, it means you have uniform definition of the law or of your issues. For example, if you define forgery differently and US define forgery differently, then it becomes very difficult for you to cooperate. So common definitions, etc., etc. Some of the treaties that we have signed up to as a country that all require the existence of a cyber crime law. So it actually means as far back as when we have been in breach of all some of the conventions that we have signed to. Because the ECOWAS directive on cyber crime and its related activities actually stipulates that all member countries must either adopt wholesome the ECOWAS cyber crime regulation or a law that reflects what ECOWAS is saying. So that has been missing in Sierra Leone. We have also signed to the Malabo Convention. The Malabo Convention is the African Union Convention on Cybercrime, Data Protection and Privacy. Again, we have signed, but we have not ratified. So meaning, again, we are in breach of that. In 2018, we signed up to the Commonwealth Cyber Declaration. This is again calling on all Commonwealth member states to unite in the fight against cybercrime. So, because of all of this, the ministry has been taking steps to ensure that we are in conformity of some of those international benchmarks. And internationally, really, there's only one convention that is becoming like the global benchmark when it comes to cybercrime law, and that is the Budapest Convention. It's like the European model, but it's now accepted across the world by about 90 or so more countries have now signed up to the Budapest Convention as a framework model when it comes to cybercrime issues. I'll show you the reason for that. So, because of some of the meetings that he attended, we are able to actually receive support from the Council of Europe through the GLACY Plus project, which is an EU project that actually supports countries to strengthen their cybersecurity landscape. And because of that, we are supported with some of the best brains when it comes to cybercrime. The leader of the team was actually a federal prosecutor of 10 years standing on cybercrime in the United States. He was head of that delegation. We spent like 5 nights at the Radisson Blu Hotel the then Attorney General sat through all the 10 nights and days. She was really very passionate because this was like rare knowledge transfer we are getting. So as a result of that, we had our first draft. And what's in that bill? The bill actually has the following principles. One, it sets the standards of acceptable behavior. It also establishes social legal sanctions. It also goes further to protect the users in general, mitigate or prevent harm to people, data, system, and infrastructure. So, when this bill is passed, some infrastructure now it becomes a crime for you to actually tamper with them. You know, for instance, some people along Congo Cross Bridge, there's actually some fiber and other telecom cables passing there. They will willfully go and cut them. So this bill tries to protect those critical resources, of which if you do anything to them, it will actually affect either service delivery or even our overall stability. Imagine if the internet is shut down for a whole day in Sierra Leone. There will be some there. So that's why critical national information infrastructure protection is important. The draft bill provides prevention of the abusive use of computer systems. We know what computer systems are. The timely and effective collection of electronic evidence. In cybercrime, there are no physical evidence. All evidence are mostly electronic. So again, one of the things that the ministry is working on is to train our investigators, law enforcement agencies on electronic evidence gathering. I think a team has already attended one in Dakar that was conducted by ECOWAS in the ECOWAS sub-region. It's very important because if you don't know how to collect electronic evidence, that's where you are going to destroy the evidence and then you'll not be able to administer it. The bill also protects all critical national information infrastructure and it provides for Sierra Leone to cooperate internationally. It actually empowers the Attorney General in times of a cybercrime to cooperate with other countries where they deem that there may be of support or maybe there are evidences that are required in the investigation and prosecution. So if you are to separate the scope of the bill, one, criminalizing the conduct, but the bill also goes ahead to provide the tools, the procedures that you must follow. So you know, it's not just because they say, oh, if you do this now it's a criminal, then it means I can do anything. No, it's prescribed steps, processes, procedures that you must follow. You see, the minister was talking about the fundamental and human rights. So cybercrime is also very mindful of that, so that's why it has to prescribe. And it also provides for international cooperation, either for extradition, mutual legal assistance, spontaneous information, expedited preservation. These are all things that we know, etc., etc. And the most important thing there is that 24/7 point of contact. In the Budapest Convention, for all the countries that have ascended to it, there's what they call the 24/7 point of contact. It means, for instance, Ghana, that is now a signatory to the Budapest Convention, they have designated one person who must 24/7 be on the alert and ready to receive calls from member countries that are ascended to the law to either provide support or him or her also can call those other member countries if there's a cybercrime in Ghana and they deem that support could come from them, and they must at all times respond to it spontaneously. So it's helping them. Now in Ghana today, they can extradite you for cybercrime from any part of the world once that country has attended to the Budapest Convention. Arrangement of the bill. The bill is arranged into 7 parts. Part 1 basically talks about the preliminaries, interpretation of certain terms, etc., etc. Part 2 tries to designate certain systems in Sierra Leone as critical national information infrastructure. And the bill gives that power to only the president to make that proclamation. So after the passing of the bill, the president can say, from today, Leicester Peak is a critical national infrastructure, period. It means now it's protected. You do anything there, you have committed a crime. So that's what part 2 talks about. Part 3 provides the scope, powers, and procedures, including search, seizure of stored computer data, records, confidentiality, etc., and the territorial jurisdiction for the law. Part 4 talks about international cooperation, the powers of the Attorney General to make and act on mutual assistance requests, extradition, confidentiality, and limitation of use and of mutual, that should be of mutual assistance. So it's not because we should assist mutually that I can do anything. The Attorney General has the power to weigh the evidence and say, no, this is why I will not agree. So it doesn't mean that because that exists, people will misuse it. They will have to weigh. If you ask, for instance, for Australia to extradite a national, you must present the evidence to show that, yes, there is a cyber crime that is likely part of. So those are the powers that laws also provide. Continuation of the, which is a part, I'm not very good at Roman, so please forgive me. Part 5, create cyber offenses. This is the interesting part. So the cyber crime is not an open-ended. It has actually criminalized certain actions. 1, unauthorized access, misuse of device, computer-related forgery and fraud, cyber stalking and bullying, infringement of copyright, somebody mentioned that, and related rights, and online child sexual abuse. There are other things, but those are not like offenses, those are like obligations. It comes also under the offenses. And part 6 actually talk about, I think Madam Commissioner Natcom was concerned, it talks about the administration and enforcement of this act, including 1, the establishment of the National Cyber Security Advisory Council, the functions of the council, and the Cyber Security Fund. We'll talk about why those structures. Of course, the last one talks about miscellaneous and gives the power to the minister to make regulations. Let me clarify this. Some people here will say, but why is the minister that will make regulation? This was something that we argue on severally, and the experts said cybercrime is not like a small crime. It's such a huge crime that sometimes it can actually lead to life imprisonment and things like that. So you don't want to relegate those responsibilities to a lower level. You want to put it at a level where actually the minister in charge of ICT can now consult with the colleague minister of Attorney General and they can decide. So that is why in terms of regulation of fines, imprisonment and things like that, they say the minister. Few things to know about the bill. Cyberbullying. Somebody talk about it. Very common here in Israel. It takes place over digital devices like cell phone, computers, and tablets through 1, SMS text, apps, or online social media forums or gaming where people can view, participate in, or share content. Basically, when cyberbullying is when you do all of those things to actually harm somebody's either reputation, security, somebody becomes apprehensive that this might threaten me life. That becomes a cyberbullying. You know, in the physical world, we see people is bully. So in the cyberspace also people do it. And it's a very common thing here in Swahili. Stalking, cyber stalking, a form of online bikini. We don't want to pass with it, we pass with that's stalking. But in the cyberspace, it's a form of harassment in which the perpetrator communicates to stalk the victim. This bill criminalizes that one. I talk about critical national information infrastructure. These are systems that are necessary for the continuous delivery of essential services that we rely on, loss or compromise of which will lead to debilitating impact. Let's take note of the word debilitating impact on the security, defense, provision of services, or international is trying to interconnect its member states. We already have our own cable at the Genema and Balamuya, Liberia interconnect. Imagine if we cut that cable off at Genema. International relations now be an issue. Liberia, of course. One thing that is interesting in the definition there is we are saying any physical or virtual. Now, some people will say, why virtual? In modern day technology, a computer system can actually be a virtual something. So that's why it's not just a physical, but it could also be a virtual, something that they can manipulate to do things. Like now we have jet fighters that are unmanned, things like that. So unauthorized access, again, here, so even this computer, I can commit an authorized access here. Assuming this is a ministry computer, and I'll be given certain levels of access. Say, for instance, I should not access the account module in this application that we are using. If I try to actually access that, even though this computer is in my possession, assigned to me, I've committed an unauthorized access. So it's not like when I go and physically break into that building, even the one you are holding, if they restrict you because maybe it's a government or general use system, you will commit unauthorized access. Interference is to tamper with the system. For instance, they want to investigate now, then you go now inside the system, you begin to manipulate the text and all that stuff, so it becomes very difficult for people to understand. Then of course, the other important thing here is the interesting part is the misuse of device. If you look at the definition, it says the intentional, unauthorized manufacture, adapt, sell, receive, poses, import, offer to sell devices to commit an offense. They don't make symbol things for really can and defraud. So by that device alone, you have committed an offense, misuse of device. Because here we say if you want to terminate call, this is what you should have. Now you call some kind of funny thing, so that's an intention to commit a crime. So misuse of device falls, those kind of charges will fall under misuse of device. Part 2, I talk about part 2 talking about the critical national information infrastructure. So in part 2, we have what we call the presidential order. It says that the president may, on the recommendations of the minister responsible for ICT, by order published in the Gazette, designate certain computer systems, data, traffic data, vital to Sierra Leone, or combination of those matters as constituting critical national information infrastructure. And this is very important. It doesn't not has to be a government system. No. Even if you are a private person running business in this country, but if you depend on that, your system, for some of the services, the president can declare it as a national critical information infrastructure because we depend on it. So you don't say, no, now government in your system, no. That's why they say any is there. The presidential order made under this section may prescribe minimum standard. So once they designate it, even if it belongs to you now, they will give you certain minimum standards you should maintain now. Because we know say now this one, if anything happens to it, it affects the people there. So they will tell you, that in the you know, just open a local one also, or now this figure follow information, say you hire security there, they do. So there should be minimum standard, there are other aspects. So basically what they are saying that if they designate this as a critical national information infrastructure, technical people will now look into what are the minimum standards. For instance, if you're running a data center in Sierra Leone, and Ministry of Finance, if Miss is sitting there, pension, and this one, NACIT pension is sitting there. You are a private person running your data center, but because NACIT is doing business with you, and such a critical system is sitting there, the president can declare that data center as a critical national information, and they will set minimum standard for you. You have to meet this. For instance, they will tell you you should be doing audit, cyber audit. You should be doing cyber drill. You should have a recovery plan in case of anything. I mean, imagine at the end of the month and it crashes, government cannot pay salary. Just imagine that one. So they'll give you those minimum standards. And the minimum standards that they're talking about will actually be the general management of that infrastructure and access to transfer and control of data. They're not going to tell you don't do this, but they'll tell you, well, you have to put these standards in play. For instance, if you're supposed to get a firewall, they'll tell you that really this place has to need a firewall. You have to put it there because we depend on them. The hackers, they can't destroy it. Infrastructure, procedure, rules, and requirements for securing the integrity, the storage or archiving of data, they will tell you put backup plans in place, etc., etc. So those are some of the procedures that the law will talk about. Part 3 talks about the powers and procedures under this act. It says that the powers and procedures under this, they are actually other In some of the parts, I'm just highlighting the critical issues, but there are so many other things to buttress the top part. So here also, it talks about the powers. It says that the powers and procedures under this act shall be applicable to and may be exercised with respect to A, criminal offences under this act, criminal offences committed by means of a computer system, including mobile phones and other electronic equipment, under any other law. So even if they are trying another law, they can actually use the procedures under this to also bring it to you. The collection of electronic evidence. This is very interesting. In Sierra Leone currently, if you have a matter, you go record, or you print an email, you grab go, then they say, no, this will not go able. But it also prescribes ways by which you collect, gather, and store those evidences. So you don't mean say you go just go to careless mode, you put it before the judge. No, they will say no, but this is not a very competent job. We've seen it in some jurisdictions, they actually dismissing evidences like that. So it says that in a trial of any offense under any law, the fact that evidence has been generated, transmitted, or seized from or identified in a search of a computer shall not of itself prevent that evidence from being presented as it's currently happening, or rely on in court. So sometimes some rape trials where the prosecutor inform with it and say, no, but this will not rely on. No, it's really an evidence that they are submitting. So that's what this bill is saying. International cooperation. Some of the issues that we need to know in Part 4, international cooperation, the spontaneous information release or gathering. Say the Attorney General, subject to this bill, can cooperate with foreign states to initiate or carry out an investigation of prosecution. So the bill actually empowers the Attorney General. If somebody in Guinea, and also can cooperate in Guinea. But this only happens if you are sent to certain international benchmark, which the minister is already working towards with his colleague from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That is the Budapest Convention. It also gives the powers of the Attorney General. For thing 1, the Attorney General may cooperate with any foreign state to 1, investigate or prosecute an offense under this act. Collect electronic evidence, extradition law in Sierra Leone. So what they are saying there is that this is going to complement it. Those other extradition, there are some, but when it comes to cybercrime, as long as you have ascended to those, that is completely one thing inside the dome, there are procedures. You must meet those procedures, and then before you are given that access rights. Designation of a point of contact for addressing requests pertaining to cybercrime. We are almost there. When it comes to offenses, the offenses are categorized in 2. You have those that are jail. You can commit offense against them. 1 is unauthorized access. Like I said, it's my computer or the ministry has assigned it to me, but there are critical systems in it. So maybe the office program, everything will be on the accounting system, HR issues, all there, but they say this they are assigned to you. So I can commit offense. If for instance I'm not to HR person and they don't tell me so you don't get access right. So maybe because I get small technique, I try, I want to see why maybe that man you always go unauthorized access. Unauthorized access to protected system. If the president designates, for instance, that this is a protected system, you don't have.
Viewers, una have done witness how the program be inside the country lodged in conference room. Today inside the conference room, the Minister of Information and Communication, winner Honorable Raman Soare, be talk concerning the importance of this cyber bill. So, also he talk say this go protect the human rights, and also he mentioned some certain things that we get to do with computer business and also the usage of phones them. And also people be get for raise concern about how some person they misuse computer systems, and where then talk say this bill so goes put an end to that one day. Maybe the program come to you today. My name is Kona Sise. Till we meet again to another edition, I say tata.